Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Annette and today we're in lovely Leeds and I've heard loads of people say when I go out shooting in the streets they don't really know what to do and it gets quite overwhelming as to what to shoot, and so I want to tell you about the little project I did last year. Well, I started it in 2017 I believe, in autumn, and all you have to do is you have to find one place in the city that you like, and I prefer to use places that have a natural footfall, so you know people are going to come there, but it's not as crowded as like a station, for example. You could do in a station, but then you need to just find the sort of right place in there where it's not just like groups of people running through. So I chose near a gallery, and what I get here is lots of people coming in for lunches to sit down. There's just naturally loads of people walking through, and also if you choose a location that has a pleasing background. So for example, mine is very simple. It's just a wall basically, and the light falls nicely on it, which creates nice shadows when the sun shining, and in the shade it looks nice as well. So I prefer places that don't have like bright backgrounds or billboards and things like that, which gets quite distracting. So I chose this location, and what I did was I would come here maybe 4 or 5 times a month and literally just sit here for half an hour to 45 minutes and document people walking by. So what you're doing is you've already chosen the location, so that's not something you need to worry about anymore. And you can just focus on getting your settings right in the camera, which is fairly easy. And you're just watching the people go by, and you're waiting for these right little moments where people just happen to stand in the right place, or their feet are in the right position, or they have the right expression, and that's all you're doing. So I did this project for 6 months. I started it in September, which was actually quite a bad choice because obviously it was autumn coming into winter time, and I would sit here with like gloves and a hat and hot cup of takeaway coffee because it was just getting so cold. But at the same time, autumn and winter time does give you that really nice light, and you do have to consider obviously that it gets darker earlier, so it's just something to take into consideration when you choose the location. And obviously how can you get there and things like that. But this was pretty easy for me to get to. So when you're doing these sort of longer documentary style projects, it's nice to see your progress from the start through to the middle, through to the finish. And it's not like you're looking for that one breathtaking image that's going to give you all the likes on Instagram or whatever. You're actually focusing on getting one project done from start to finish, and then it just gives you so much more pleasure looking at it and showing it to people than just one image that you've been running around town looking for. And the thing is, when you are walking around the city looking for stuff to shoot without any sort of goals in mind, most likely you will end up shooting things that everybody else is shooting. Why? Because you'll be looking for these sort of maybe landmarks or things to sort of jump out, which are quite obvious, and therefore many people will shoot the same thing. But if you're doing a quite simple, basic street photography project like this that takes a while, you are putting your personality, you're putting your style like as a stamp on it, and it's going to be very hard for anybody to replicate. And trust me, when it's finished, you will feel so much more proud of it than you would otherwise feel about, I don't know, just snapping one image and getting 50, 100 likes on Instagram and that's it. So obviously there will be times where you don't get anything, or it may be rainy, which happened to me a lot as well actually. And don't worry about that, because just make sure you sort of plan enough of times to come to the same location. Say if you want to get it finished in 3 months, make sure you do have enough time to come back if you do need to cancel some of your sessions. And in regards to images, if you don't get anything, again, if you go home with just one image, that is a successful day. I've had days where I felt like I didn't really get much. But when you get home, you look through them, you start editing, then maybe you'll get inspiration to see something that you didn't see before. So even though you're sort of in a very public space, as I am now, you do get used to it, and it does not feel as you don't feel as self-conscious being outside in the street with your camera. So I think this is quite a good project where you just do on your terms. You don't have to sort of engage with anybody. And literally in those 6 months, I had 2 people walk by who looked at me. The rest of just don't notice you. Like, you just sat there for a long time and you just sort of blend in with everybody else. And I had one guy look at me, and I took a picture of that. And then later on I went to a coffee shop, and then he was actually there and we got talking about it. And then the second time I photographed a photographer, and there must be something about photographers, they just see somebody else with a camera. So he came across and he started talking to me. But other than that, nobody else noticed me. So I found this to be sort of quite an easy project to do, because you don't have to speak to anybody or tell them to pose. You just mind your own business, sit in a corner and just keep shooting, finding those really interesting compositions or looking for light. Just making sure you get maybe a nice shadow or nice sunlight sort of combined. So the longer you sit in one place, it's actually quite interesting, because you'll start noticing like all these mini stories that you can create in your head. For example, I've sat down and I've had suddenly a sort of impromptu dance group arrive, I think it was, and they just like set up and started dancing sort of nearby me. And I've had just like loads of these little funny little things happen that people do. They start laughing, or they do like funny poses, and because you sat down one place and you just start to observe so much more than you would if you were walking through the city. For example, in Paris, I walked literally like, what was it? Something stupid, like 20 kilometers the first day. And by the third day, I messed up my foot because I walked so much. And I felt like I rushed through the city so much, I hardly actually saw anything. So by sitting down and just slowing yourself down, you start to notice so much more. So in regards to my gear, I use the same camera. I use D750 Nikon and 85mm lens. I chose 85 because from where I was sat, that gave me really the best sort of viewpoint, I guess. It gave me, like, I could capture close enough portraits should people walk closest to me, and if they were further away, I could still get them full length. Like, I didn't want something that's too wide, and I didn't want something that's too close either. So just choose the equipment that you need for the location you're in. Obviously, if you're in a cafe, you may want something a bit wider, then again you may not. So just choose accordingly and based on where you sat and what the distance is from your subject. So in regards to locations, I would recommend places like maybe an outdoors cafe, which you can do either in the winter time or summertime, because people still wear jackets and they would stay outside and smoke and have a coffee. You could do places like I chose, which is next to a gallery, just because for me it offered a really nice background, and the place I sat down was a bench, so I always chose the same bench basically, which gave me a nice sort of view from my bench. You could do a park maybe, so yeah, just like somewhere in the city where you know you can sit down, like sit down on the floor or in the grass, because that'll get quite cold. Choose a nice background that's not too busy, unless that's your goal. Choose a location again that's not too busy but has a natural footfall, and basically away you go. So all you have to do is be patient, look for those nice compositions, and keep shooting and gain more confidence shooting in the street with a camera, obviously. So I actually had somebody who came onto my workshop, and he is a hobbyist photographer and he hadn't really done much of street photography. So when we got talking and I told him about a project like this, he actually got quite interested in it, and he was like, oh yeah, I could do this in this cafe that I go to, blah blah. And to me it's just like this gateway into street photography where you find a place that you feel safe in, so you're controlling that and you blend into the background, so it's not like you're jumping into anybody's face. And to me this is like a nice way to get started in street photography. So I hope you will get to do something like this, and if you do, please do let me know in the comments if you've succeeded. Hopefully you did. And if you did enjoy this video, I would really appreciate if you do hit thumbs up, like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.